Okay, we'd like to begin another episode of OnShape, and we're going to do a couple things in this name tag exercise. We're going to first learn how to do a feature fillet and a feature chamfer. We'll also learn how you can emboss or engrave text on a surface. And then we'll also learn how to use existing geometry on one part to design geometry for a separate part. And then finally, we'll also learn how to use the Revolute Mate to insert a cylinder into a hole. So let's go to OnShape and go to your IED folder, and you're going to create a new document and call it Nametag underscore your last name, first initial. And since we're going to be working in millimeters, we should change our workspace units to millimeters. And it's also helpful to change the mass units to match the same system. So grams or kilograms, this is a small piece, so grams are fine. Okay, so we are going to first start a sketch on the top plane. Now I'm going to use the default planes here a lot. So I'm going to click on the top plane here. And then I want to look straight at it. And I'm going to grab a corner rectangle, attach it to the origin, and drag it up somewhere and click. And then we want 60 width, enter, 20 height. Okay, so there's our starting part. And then the next step is we want to round off the two right side edges with a sketch fillet, which is right here next to the scissors. So click on the sketch fillet, and then I can highlight the point where that corner is. Click on that, and it applies it. It gives you a preview, and you click again to change the dimension, which is 6. And then the corner just below that. Click again, and notice it uses the same dimension as you used on the previous one. So click and enter, and there's our fillet. All right, finish that sketch, and now we need to extrude it. Okay, now I'm going to take a quick look from the side over here. You'll see why shortly. We're going to do a symmetric sketch. Okay, this extrudes it above and below the plane. So 4 millimeters. And click on our sketch. Notice it extrudes half of that above and half of the 4 below. That's going to be important later on. Okay, so symmetric sketches are nice when you need a midline through showing through your part for later placement of geometry. Finish the sketch. Okay, so now we're looking at this side. Now the next step is we want to see how these corners here meet at 90-degree angles. That's kind of sharp. I'd like to shave those off with a chamfer. So I'm going to do a feature chamfer up here. Click on that. And I want equal distance, 6 millimeters. And then I just select this left edge. Notice I highlight not the whole side. I want the left edge. And the right edge here. Notice it shaves them off. And green check mark. Okay, next step. I'd like to round off all the edges around the top and all the edges around the bottom. Okay, let's round that off to make it nice and smooth. So I'm going to choose a feature fillet this time. And I want the radius to be 2 millimeters, which is half of the thickness of this part, and you'll see why shortly. So I could select each individual edge, but that would take a while if I just wanted to do all the edges all around. So instead I can move my mouse over the top and notice all the edges get highlighted. And if I click, they all get automatically rounded off. And I also need to do that to the bottom. So I'm going to switch to the isometric view of the bottom here, zoom back in, move my mouse over the bottom face, and boom, it rounds it off. All right, so finish that. Okay, and let's look at the top here. So the next step is I'm going to put a sketch on the surface of this top surface of my extrusion. Okay, make sure it says face of extrude 1 here. If it says top plane, click the little X to delete that and replace it and select the face, the top face of your extrusion here. Okay, and now to place text, I'm going to choose a text box and I'm going to place it so that it fills up some of this space. Make sure you don't snap it to anything yet. We can adjust the size later and type in something short. There are other fonts to explore here if you want, and other options that you can play with. All right, there we are. And that's a little bit small, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to coincident this right edge of the text box with the right edge of the top face before it curves down. So there, and then press escape, and that will let me stretch this out a little bit. I'm gonna move it down, kind of center it. And yeah, that still fits. You always got to check to make sure your letters still fit there. Okay, and don't protrude off over onto the fillet. Yeah, that's good enough. And I'm going to finish my sketch. And then to emboss or to engrave your name, emboss would be to raise it up, engrave would be to cut it out of the surface. Okay, choose an extrude. And I want to blind extrude to a depth of 0.8 millimeters, and I want to remove. Make sure you select the remove option. And then highlight your sketch so that all the letters in your name are highlighted. And boom. Okay. If you did it right, that will show up on the surface. If you accidentally selected the top plane for your sketch surface and not the top of your extrusion, then you wouldn't see your letters. They would effectively be inside your name tag. All right, so there's the letters. All right, next step. We need to put a little hole on the edge over here. So I'm going to switch over to the left view in my navigation cube, and I'm going to zoom in. And notice this X-plane goes right through the middle of my part because of that symmetric extrusion. That's going to be handy now because when we place a point for our hole, we can line it up easily with our origin. That's why we did that symmetric. So I'm going to start a new sketch, and I'm going to select the right plane from the default plane list here. Okay, that's the plane that's here at the end of the part, and I'm going to select the point tool, which is right next to the text tool. Move my mouse so I get a little dotted line from the origin and place my point somewhere here in the middle. Don't attach it to one of the edges. Make sure you click it right there somewhere in the middle, and then we need to dimension that. So I'm going to select the dimension tool, and I want the point to the far left edge so that it's in the middle. The whole thing is 20, so right in the middle would be 10. All right, and then finish my sketch, and then I'm going to select the hole tool and make sure it's a simple blind 2 millimeter diameter, 5 millimeter deep hole. Start from the sketch plane and then select the point that you just made for your hole. And boom, you see a little hole appear there. If you turn your part, you can see that it actually goes into your part. All right. Okay, so that's that. And that finishes the tag part. So let's change the name of part 1, rename it to tag. Okay. All right. Now, the next step is we need to build the pin and the ring that attach in this hole. So that's going to be a separate part, but I want it to match the size of this hole. So in order to use that geometry, I need to project that circle onto a new sketch. So I'm going to start a new sketch, select the right plane again, zoom in, and now I'm going to get the use or project convert tool. It's right up here next to the text tool. So all the tools we've used so far are pretty much right around the same spot. And then highlight the circle. See how it's all highlighted in yellow, and click it. And now you see a dark black circle, a thick black circle appear on your sketch. You can finish that. Okay, switch out to an isometric view here again. You'll see why shortly. And I'm going to choose an extrusion. Select this hole, and I want a symmetric extrusion of 10 millimeters. So 5 will go into the part, which matches the depth of the hole, and 5 will stick out. And I want a new part. Make sure you select new as well. Okay, that will create a new part down here that is related to this part. Now, if you wanted to see inside, you could select over here in the view cube translucent, and you could see how far your part extends into the name tag. Okay, that's handy sometimes to see if this is going to interfere. If your hole's longer, you can see if it interferes with any of your letters that you extruded down, and you can switch back to shaded. Okay, so this is good. All right, so now we've got our part here. We want to build a ring at the end, so I'm going to switch in the navigation to the top view, zoom in, and I'm going to start a new sketch on the top plane again. And I want to project the edge of this pin onto my sketch because I'm going to use that line as an edge. So I'm going to project that edge, and I'm going to grab a 3-point arc and attach it to either end of that and drag it out to make my ring shape. And then my radius, I'm going to type in 10 so that it matches the width of my name tag. All right, so there we go. And then the next thing is I'm going to project this ring inside. So I'm going to select the project or offset tool, offset. Click on the ring and the flat part that I projected. And I don't want it to go outside, I want it to go inside. So I'm going to drag this arrow inside instead. And then click to place and type in 4 millimeters. I want it to be offset by 4 millimeters. Finish that sketch and extrude. I want a symmetric extrusion, the same depth as my name tag, which is 4. And I want to add it. I don't want a new one. I want to add it to part 2. So make sure its merge scope is part 2. Good. All right, so it's going to attach to part 2 and check. And now if you look over here, you can see it's the same depth as that and it's centered on the pin. All right, and we're going to rename part 2 ring. Okay, so now it looks like it's together, but we haven't actually assembled it together. If we go to the assembly and insert him, which we need to do now, we're going to insert the ring and the tag, and we need to place these somewhere. So let's place them and then check. And then notice if you grab the ring, it moves separately from the tag. So we still need to mate these. So I'm going to select the Revolute Mate or Revolute right here. And the way this works is it attaches whatever circular end you select, which I'm going to select the end of my ring, to whatever circular surface you select. Now make sure that this is the end of the hole. We don't want the end of the hole. We want the bottom of the hole. So make sure you notice how my part moves within that hole. I want the bottom of that hole. So I'm going to select that and then green check mark up here. And if I check now, if I grab my name tag, notice the ring moves with it, so they are now mated. And that is the end of our name tag exercise.